Welcome back to the Disruptive Dialogue, where we're fostering conversations that innovate change. My name is Thomas Cotton, and I'm the host. I'm here with my boy, my friend, my brother, Michael Upshaw, founder and CEO of We Are Above the Cloud Marketing and Media. Your email address is Michael
at We Are Above the Cloud.
Yeah, that's what I want to say, .com. So if you want to find them, weareabovethecloud.com. He is now an official sponsor. That made him an official sponsor, I'm just saying.
Official. It's official.
It's official because I put it out there on social media.
That's right.
And on our podcast and everything, but look for weareabovethecloud.com if you need any marketing and media. We've been talking about this whole back in the days, the passion behind the purpose and the different things we see. Hey everyone, I'm Thomas Cotton, the founder and CEO of Redemption and Advancement Alliance. And boy, do I have something important to share with you today. We know that Giving Tuesday is right around the corner. And guess what? We need your incredible support to help us in our fight against recidivism and to smash that awful school to prison pipeline. Yep, you heard it right. Smash that awful school to prison pipeline. So to give today, go to www.redeem-advance.org or scan the QR code. Thanks for your support. We talked about back in the day, we talked about gangster rap, and I left last show with saying just trying to survive.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times when we think about the gangster rap culture and the way it is, it's not about people out there wanting to create havoc.
Yeah.
Even though havoc is what they see. Even though that's what they're creating.
Yeah.
Even though we can keep going and going when it comes to gangsters and gangster rap. But the reality is survival. When we start thinking about survival, just trying to survive and what that looks like in life, period.
Yeah.
Not even if you're from the streets, just surviving. You know, that puts you in a different mindset. If you walk out every day trying to survive, you know, we talked about gangster rap. Ice Cube had one of the lyrics that always sticks with me. How to survive in South Central.
Yeah.
A place where busting a cap is fundamental,
Yeah.
right? And so when we start thinking about the fundamentals of life and what people are exposed to, this is the life that people were exposed to and have been exposed to. I've been exposed to, where you're just trying to stay alive long enough to try to figure out how to move forward. And you're trying to eat, you're trying to provide, you're doing so many other things, but at the same time you want peace, you want to have fun. So what started off as survival for some, it ends up being a lifestyle, right? Because not only can I eat and provide for myself, it allows me the ability to have some fun and kick it and do certain other things.
Yeah.
So when we start thinking about the flip side of how this gangster culture develops, I can't even say that because it's been around way before rap music.
Right.
You know, and we can't say that the gangster rap was the reason for gang culture or any other culture. We just know that when we're in certain communities and certain places, we see things. So you being from Detroit, me being from California, what did you see when it comes to people just trying to survive?
Man, that's a great question and a lot to unpack, but probably just to simplify it, survival is multifaceted, you know, where I grew up at, right? Mm-hmm. So whether it was, you know, young kid in school, walking down the block, you know, getting chased from, you know, one place to the next, or, you know, all these different things. So you see people start to do things like carry weapons, right? Because they want to survive, not because they're in a gang, not because they are part of the street. Some of it is just fear-based, right? It's like, I want to protect myself from someone else who may do something to me, right? So that's part of it. Or, you know, financially, it may be tough on somebody. They may end up selling drugs because, you know, maybe their parents couldn't pay the bills, or, you know, it's a matter of, you know, having food in your home or whatever it is. Survival mode, you know, causes people to make decisions that, in my opinion, they wouldn't normally make, right? For some people. For others, it's not always a matter of survival. We do have to point out the fact that there are just some bad seeds out there, right? It's just people who want to do wrong and do bad. And I think distinguishing between the two helps us to understand, you know, people who are really literally grinding to survive, you know, want to live day to day and, you know, make it and, you know, help other people. So I think in that scenario, when we look at what survival looks like, I can speak from growing up and what I seen. Man, it wasn't always pretty,
Right.
right? But there were certain things that were necessary for people based off of, their limitations and, then what they had access to, and then what it took for them to be able to thrive in a, environment that wasn't necessarily conducive to positivity,
Right.
So, yeah.
Access, that always comes up, ways and means, when we start thinking about ways and means and what we have access to. I mean, we do what we're taught a lot of the times. Of course, people will say, well, you weren't taught how to go out and be a part of that lifestyle. But I know for me, when I found myself in that space, there was just so many different things happening in my life that kept me wanting to do more, but it seemed like there's this ceiling. Mm-hmm. Like, just teach me how to do something new. Teach me how to Dougie. I'm just joking with you. But teach me how to really engage this world. I didn't know how to apply for college. I didn't even know you had to apply for college. Right. I thought get good grades, graduate from high school, and go to college, do it. That's just kind of the route that people were saying. But
I thought it was stupid that you had to pay for a college application anyway.
I didn't even know you had to do that. I didn't know you had to pay for a college application. I didn't know the clues. Go to school, get good grades, but what about my day-to-day life that I have to struggle and strive through? How can you not teach me how to get past that?
Yeah.
How can you not interacting with the people and you're just pointing fingers and they're the bad people, but then when I get around them, it's all love.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're telling me these people are bad, but you're not showing me how to survive.
Right.
Right? The people that you're saying are bad are actually helping me to survive. Like, I'm hungry, they're feeding me.
Yeah.
Or give me the ways and means to feed myself.
Right.
Right? And so, and it wasn't like a lot of money, but it was enough for the day.
Right.
It was enough to get me by for the day. And then not only that, the type of clout, or, when I was a nice guy, people misuse a nice guy.
Right.
Right? But then I started learning, hey, you can't be Mr. Nice Guy because otherwise you get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And so, when you start feeling this survival mode, there's a certain heartbeat that goes behind it. And when your rhythms of your heartbeat connect, you're connected. It's like the music. We talked about the music in gangster rap and how this is how my heart beat toward it, right? Some people's heart beat different toward it, so they do different things.
It's very true.
And so as we start to look at like the connections that were made and just trying to survive back in the days, we have to begin to look at how we survive. Now, let me just say this real quick. Some people didn't survive and get involved with that fully, but they interacted with it.
Yeah.
And we did things that we look back and we say now, man, that was stupid.
Yeah.
But while we're in it, while we're in the thick of it, it was just a way to make it.
Yeah. I think you make a very valid point. I mean, I think it's some of the things that, for instance, I use this as a point of reference. I used to have this thing like, if I can make it, as long as I make it back home, right? So that indicates the place that you're going is probably somewhere you shouldn't be, right? It's probably dangerous. But if your whole thought process before you get there is, as long as I make it back home. So today, that would be a much different thought because I'm like, I'm not going to that place, right? Because it's not about that. But that was the whole key about surviving is going, being able to have a good time, have fun, but make it home, right? So when we think about it from that perspective of what is it that we're actually surviving, we also have to look at what situations are we putting ourselves in those types of situations or scenarios. I remember one night getting in the car with a good friend of mine who we were driving, and as we came up to a certain spot, the police got behind us, and we were in El Camino, as a matter of fact. And when they got behind us and turned the lights on, I was like 16 years old, and my buddy who was driving was like 20, right? And he took off. And I'm talking like bat out of hell driving fast. And we talking survival, but then will we survive?
Right.
At that age, I'm in the passenger seat thinking, at some point, this ain't cool no more. Like,
Right.
you know, but I'm not saying anything because I'm just really, as I'm having a conversation now and talking about it, I'm praying that we make it home, right?
Keep me out of this, Lord. I promise.
Yeah, because in your mind, you like, man, we really running from the police, right? And
Did he tell you he was gonna run?
No, but it when you get in that situation, man, like your adrenaline is, you know, you've been drinking or smoking or whatever it is, and now your mind is like, so think about how many other people are in the vehicle when things happen,
Right.
when it's not their decision.
Right.
Right. Now, we did evade the police and we got away, right? We made it out alive,
Yeah.
but I would never get back in the car with that same individual.
Right.
Right. Because while in his mind, he was able to get to the party and brag about how we got away from the police. In my mind, I'm thinking like, man, this could have ended so horribly wrong that I wouldn't be sitting here on this podcast telling this story.
I don't know how it happened, but when that happened, he's bragging about it. Were you like, yeah, you know,
No.
you're feeling a certain kind of
No.
way, or you're just like, I'm done?
Man, look, I was at that point in my life and where I was trying to find the next drink so that I could bring my nerves down.
Right,
because literally, like I would hear stories of certain friends that, you know, that's what they did, but that's the first time and the last time that I had ever been in that
Right.
scenario.
Crazy thing is, you're 16, you're talking about, I need to find a drink to calm my nerves.
Hey, well,
See, where does that come from?
Survival.
Right? Survival.
Yeah.
And so we start thinking about like the different ways, because I've been in that scenario before, and I didn't get away because we were rolling, police caught up, and we had already thrown all the weed and stuff out,
Yeah.
but we was high as a mug.
Yeah.
Police was about to take us to jail. We cuffed up in the car. They got another call, let us go. We rolled back around, pick up the weed where we threw it out at.
Yeah.
Rolled the windows back up, started smoking. Now here's the dumb part. The reason why the cop even got us is because we had all the windows rolled up and smoking weed and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And someone decided to crack a window like a chimney. The stupid stuff we do, though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That
it's true.
that isn't survival sometimes. Sometimes it's just ignorance and stupidity,
Well,
right?
that's the thing, man. So like, if I'm in control and I can make that decision, right, it's a different thing.
Right.
You know, like I like fast cars and I like to race.
Nah, me too.
I don't want to outrun the police, right? It could just end horribly in so many different ways.
Right.
Because you're not thinking about the person that you might run into, right? You're not thinking about the wall you might hit and never walk away from this. You don't think about all of these tragic events, you know, when you make this choice to do it. And when you're not the person to make that choice, right? Like you saying to the guy, man, why would you roll the window down? Right? But nobody says, why are we rolling around in the car smoking weed in the first place? Right? So it's the things that we do and then we justify them based on like, you know, our involvement in it.
Right.
When we talk about survival, you know, the fact that I was in the military, right? And I think about that's the whole thing. If you go to war, you got to be taught, you know, mentally how to be able to make it and how to do all these things.
Right.
Well, in the hood, it's the same way, right? And just like in the military, survival can lead to trauma, right?
Yeah.
And just like in the hood, it leads to trauma. So like that experience for me was a traumatic experience, right? But most people wouldn't necessarily see it based off their experience, right? Because if you're the guy who gets the adrenaline rush by outrunning the police, it's not traumatic for you,
Right.
right? But if you're the guy sitting in the seat going, Lord, just let us make it to,
Right.
you know, out of this, it's very traumatic. And you know, so anyway, so when we think about those things in terms of survival and how it leads to other things, especially things when you're not in control of the situation, yeah, man, it can be brutal.
But then you can be that person like me who's like, hey, I'm down for whatever. You know, you running, I'm running. You know, the loyalty that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong.
But at least give me an option.
You ain't got no option. You got in the car with me. You already know what kind of person I was. Now, don't act like you didn't know who I was when you got in the car, right? And so don't punk out now.
That's like the episode of Boys in the Hood, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, episode, it was a movie.
Right.
But remember, they riding around and it's
Right.
like, hey, you know, we gonna shoot this cat because he shot my brother, right?
Right.
But at some point, it's like, wait, time has elapsed, and now you think about it, and it's like, man, no, I ain't doing
Right.
this, right? So it speaks to who we are.
But it also speaks to where you're going.
It does.
So you being involved with that could have went either way.
Yeah.
You could have been like, yeah, man, I'm glad we rolled out. I was down from day one with that,
Yeah.
right?
I ain't telling nobody I was scared.
Then, but then what it does for you is it helps, man, Michael down, he's down for whatever,
Yeah.
and it gives you that feeling and that engagement, because this is my survival. If people think I'm more with this, then
Right.
they are going to be more down with me.
Right.
If I'm down for you, you're down for me, kind of thing, right? Not saying that's the way everybody is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's the way it could be, and that's sometimes what I would do. You didn't even have to just knock on my door. Yo, let's go.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember, a situation. I'm not even going to talk about it because it's another situation where
Right.
I had to make a panicky call and say, yo, I need you to do this for me. And they went, handled the business, nothing crazy. It's just something I don't want to talk about because of the people that are involved. But I knew I can believe in the people around me to do things
That's
that
loyalty.
I needed.
Yeah.
And the same goes for me. You need me, no problem. And so when you start talking about just trying to survive, a part of survival is we don't want to be surviving in silos either.
Right.
We don't want to survive by ourselves.
Yeah.
No one wants to do life by themselves in
Right.
silos. No matter if you're in a gang culture and raised in the hood or the experiences we had,
Yeah.
no one wants to do this by themselves.
Yeah, it's true.
So when you start thinking about change and making these changes in life, you don't want to do it by yourself either.
Right.
So just imagine if you had to make the changes and the shifts from 16-year-old getting drunk Michael to calm my nerves because I just ran from the police.
Yeah.
And now making the shifts and changes that you had to do. You had to make decisions on your own, but you didn't make the changes by yourself.
Right. Well, I think, man, the more we look at life and experience, right? You already 50.
Dang.
Plus, I'm getting ready to turn 50. And as you look back, man, you start to think about, wow, I survived some really dangerous things, right?
Right.
A lot of people didn't, right? A lot of people's loyalty to whatever, a lot of people's I'm down for that, put them in a situation where they never walked away, right? It put them in a situation where they made a decision that there was no coming back from.
Right.
Right. And so when we look at these things, it makes us think about our choices. Now we're more calculated, right? We're thinking through from the perspective of what I survived. And now where I am today would not be a situation had one thing gone wrong, right? In a major way. And a lot of times it doesn't even have to be the fact that you are the person that's doing something. It could be based on who you hung out with, right? You could just, friendships can lead to tragedies just because of who you hang around with and all of these different things. And so for us, I think today, sitting back as a parent, as a grandparent, as a father, as a husband, as a minister, as an entrepreneur, like, man, if I went back in that time and you told me I was going to be a husband, a father, a grandfather, entrepreneur, a pastor, a friend to many people who never lived in my neighborhood, right? I wouldn't have made all the decisions that I made, possibly.
Right.
But all of those decisions and choices actually got me to where I am today. So when you think about it, man, as bad as it was in some of the different things, I think the heart change is what makes the difference. And now you realize that you survived for a whole nother purpose.
The interesting thing is that you had an opportunity for the change. You made a decision, and you had the grace enough in your life to be able to make the shifts and the changes necessary to become all of that.
Yep.
Because without the time, without being able to be around people who can help you, for you as a military, probably one of the big decisions there, it was your wife who helped you recognize some things about yourself, and so many other things
Yeah.
that will allow you the grace to overcome. But you didn't do that walk by yourself.
No.
And you had a platform to do it. You know, one of the things you said is there are things that traumatized you.
Yeah.
And that trauma could have took you either way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That trauma could have buried you deeper into it.
Yeah.
Or for you, it kind of scared you straight in
Yeah.
a sense. That you never got in a car with this dude again because
Yeah.
whatever. But how many times do we just make simple decisions that turn us, you know, one way or the other? We don't expect it to go that way, but it does.
Yeah.
And as a young person, you know, when we start thinking about our young people, they make decisions without understanding how the world works.
Yeah.
We made decisions back then, like you said, the people we hung around with, the things that we got into, and we made these decisions. We didn't look at it as, okay, I'm going to get in this car, and when we run from the police, I could possibly hit the wall, I can do this. No,
Yeah.
we looked at it as we're untouchable, invincible. Why? Because we had this limited view on life.
Right.
But when we come to the age of accountability, or we start to see things differently, when now do we show grace to people who made those dumb decisions?
Yeah.
Everybody made dumb decisions when they were younger.
Yeah.
It just didn't lead to prison or this lifestyle or a certain thing.
Or graveyard.
Or a graveyard.
Yeah.
And so what we want to understand is like your trauma and the trauma that you go into, your trauma of the trauma of poverty,
Yeah.
honestly. It's like a poverty mindset,
Yeah.
the trauma of physically being impoverished and the poverty of the community, the poverty that's all around us. A lot of times when we think about gangs and gang members and people who are in that lifestyle or you know, a part of that lifestyle, there's some kind of poverty that's there.
Right.
And we have to remember that the trauma of poverty keeps the trauma of poverty going.
Yeah. You know, one of the things about poverty, it's interesting as you grow up and you see things and you don't realize really what poverty is, right? It takes some time moving outside, or as you get older, you start to recognize things. I mean, think about it, man. Growing up, I mean, you know, if I was to sit here and tell you like, yeah, I went to private school, right? But private school in the hood is different than what most people might think, right? So, but I went to private school. But I went to private school because I got kicked out of public school. So there was no other choice. Like, it wasn't like there was an alternative school for me to go to. It was that my mom said, okay, this is the next step. And then I got kicked out of private school only to end up back in public school, right? So when we think about poverty and the scenarios of finances in the community and how it circulates, I mean, think about it. And I brought that point up to say that a lot of us went to private school in the hood, right? But all of us were still doing the same things that we were doing. It does become a decision, right? It does become an actual choice at some point when you say, man, somebody's willing to invest in me to go to this school to possibly get a better education than what I would get in a public school. And if truth is told, for a lot of us, the reason why we ended up in private school was either we got in trouble or our parents was trying to keep us away from certain elements that were in those schools. The problem is the schools are in the same neighborhood.
Right.
So like I traveled, the private school that I went to was probably 15 miles from my house.
Right.
So literally I had to take a bus to get there. And now I'm in a neighborhood that I don't live in. And I got to deal with people in a whole nother neighborhood when I'm on my way home. Right.
But that's like going to, let's say, prison or a juvenile or something,
Yeah.
right? You get away from the neighborhood and you start to see things differently.
Yep.
But you always have to return back to where you come from.
That's it.
And so it doesn't matter what you learn new, you still know what you know.
That's it.
And you're still a part of what you've been a part of.
You are.
And so as you start to think about that poverty mindset, and again, I'm not knocking it because as we covered in the previous episodes, there's some good stuff that comes out of this. There's a lot of good, but how's that working for us, right?
Yeah.
Because when we start thinking about the poverty, and not just the poverty of the mindset and the trauma, but we start thinking about what does that lead to? We begin to kill our own. We begin to make things harder in our own areas, in our own environments. We don't take care of the things that are right in front of us. We actually jack them up. And so we are going to catch catch us in the next show.
Yeah.
We'll continue this conversation about the poverty that keeps poverty going. Hey everyone, I'm Thomas Cotton, the founder and CEO of Redemption and Advancement Alliance. And boy, do I have something important to share with you today. We know that Giving Tuesday is right around the corner. And guess what? We need your incredible support to help us in our fight against recidivism and to smash that awful school-to-prison pipeline. Yep, you heard it right. Smash that awful school-to-prison pipeline. So to give today, go to www.redeem-advance.org or scan the QR code. Thanks for your support.